My wife's work meetings were actually secret hotel romps with her lover, but the dark truth behind his initials on her locket blew up our lives and exposed his criminal empire. All right, Reddit. Throwaway account, obviously. Longtime lurker, never thought I'd be posting here, especially not about this. I've seen enough tales of woe and triumph on this sub to know you guys offer some brutally honest, often necessary, advice. So here goes. I need to get this out, need to process it, and maybe, just maybe, someone out there has been through something similar and can offer a shred of sanity. My wife, Sarah. We've been together for 12 years, married for 9. 2 amazing kids, a house, the whole suburban dream, right? Or so I thought. Up until about 6 months ago, I would have told you we had a solid, if not always perfect, marriage. Like any couple, we had our ups and downs, our arguments, but we always came back to each other. We were a team. I loved her fiercely, and I truly believed she loved me back. But things started to shift. Slowly at first, imperceptibly almost. Her phone became an extension of her hand, face down on the table when I was around, quick to snatch it if I so much as glanced in its direction. Personal stuff? John, privacy. She'd snap if I asked who she was texting. She'd always been a bit private, a bit guarded, but this felt different. More aggressive. Then came the late nights. Work events, she'd say. Meeting with clients. I'm in IT. She's in marketing, so it wasn't unheard of. But they became more frequent, and her explanations grew thinner, more hurried. Sometimes she'd come home smelling faintly of something I couldn't quite place. Not booze, not perfume she usually wore. Just different. If I mentioned it, she'd get defensive. Are you seriously implying something, John? I'm busting my ass for this family. For us, and you're grilling me like a suspect? Her eyes would narrow. That familiar icy stare she used when she wanted to shut down a conversation instantly. And it always worked. I'd back off, feeling like an asshole for even asking. I kept telling myself it was stress, that she was under a lot of pressure at her new job, that I was overthinking it. God, I wish I was. It all came to a head last Tuesday. I had a rare day off, a floating holiday I needed to use before the end of the quarter. Sarah knew I was home. She'd even joked about me doing some extra chores. She left for work as usual. Big meeting today, might be late again, don't wait up. That same dismissive wave, the hurried kiss on the cheek that barely landed. I spent the morning puttering around, finally tackling that leaky faucet in the guest bathroom. Around noon, I decided to make myself some lunch. As I was heading to the kitchen, I noticed Sarah's purse on the hall table. Usually, she's meticulous about taking it with her, especially to work. My first thought was, damn, she's going to be annoyed she forgot it. I figured I'd call her, but then I thought, maybe she just needs something out of it for the meeting, and it's easier if I just bring it to her office. I know, going through a spouse's purse isn't cool, but my intention was purely helpful. I just wanted to grab her wallet and keys, put them in a smaller bag, and drop it off. I opened the main compartment, rummaging for her wallet. Instead, my fingers brushed against something hard and metallic tucked into a zippered side pocket. Curious, I pulled it out. It was a keychain, not her usual one, which has a little charm the kids made for her. This one was sleek, silver, with a single key attached, and a small, embroidered tag that read, Hyatt Room 307. My blood ran cold. The Hyatt isn't anywhere near her office. It's across town, one of those swanky places executives use for things that aren't usually big meetings. My heart started hammering against my ribs. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe a client meeting was there? But then why a room key, not a conference room access card? And why hide it? As I stood there, key in hand, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sarah. Forgot my purse. Can you bring it to the office? Need my key card for a presentation. The timing felt like a sick cosmic joke. My eyes darted to the key in my hand. Room 307. I looked at the time. 12:45 p.m. A sudden, irrational thought, an instinct, screamed at me. I grabbed my car keys, the Hyatt key clutched tight in my fist, and walked out the door. My office could wait. Her presentation could wait. Everything could wait. The drive to the Hyatt felt like an eternity and simultaneously like I was in a time warp, everything blurring around me. My hands were shaking so bad, I almost swerved off the road a couple of times. My mind was a chaotic mess of denial and sick certainty. Asterisk no, she wouldn't. Not Sarah. But the key, the lies, the evasiveness, it all started to coalesce into a horrific picture. I pulled into the parking garage, my heart doing a frantic drum solo in my chest. I considered just going home, burying my head in the sand. But I couldn't. I had to know. I needed proof, one way or another, even if it shattered everything. Walking into the lobby felt surreal, like I was watching myself from outside my own body. I kept my head down, avoided eye contact with the front desk, and headed straight for the elevators. My palms were sweating so much the key almost slipped from my grasp. Third floor. My stomach churned. Each step down the hallway echoed ominously in my ears. 301. 303. 305. And then 307. I paused, my breath hitched in my throat. I could hear muffled voices from inside. A man's laugh. And then Sarah's distinctive, throaty giggle, the one she usually reserved for me, or when she was genuinely happy. A wave of nausea washed over me, so intense I almost threw up right there in the hallway. My vision tunneled. The air felt thick, heavy, suffocating. My hand trembled as I inserted the key. It slid in smoothly. The little green light flashed. I pushed the door open, slowly at first, then harder. The sight that greeted me, it was like a punch to the gut, winded me completely. There she was, not alone, and definitely not working. My wife, half-dressed, with a man who was most certainly not me, looking equally disheveled. They both froze, eyes wide with shock, mouths agape. The silence in the room was deafening, punctuated only by the frantic pounding of my own heart. It was a movie scene, a bad dream, but it was horrifyingly real. For a few endless seconds, we just stood there, a tableau of betrayal. The other guy, some slick-haired suit I'd never seen before, looked like a deer caught in headlights. Sarah's face, usually so composed and sharp, was a mask of pure terror, draining of all color. Her eyes darted from me to the key still dangling from the lock, then back to my face, filled with a sickening mix of guilt and defiance. "John," she finally gasped, her voice a reedy whisper, barely recognizable. She scrambled to pull her blouse closed, a pathetic attempt at modesty after I'd just seen her in a state of utter disarray. The man just sat there on the edge of the bed, frozen, fumbling with his own clothes. I couldn't speak. The words were stuck somewhere in my throat, choked by a cocktail of rage, disgust, and profound heartbreak. My whole body was vibrating, a tremor that started in my hands and shook me to my core. All I could manage was a guttural sound, a strangled noise that probably sounded more like an injured animal than a human being. "What are you doing here?" she finally managed, her voice gaining a surprising edge of indignation, as if I was the one in the wrong. The audacity of it almost made me laugh, a hysterical, bitter laugh that would have been completely out of place. I slowly pulled the key from the lock, holding it up, letting it dangle between my thumb and forefinger. "This," I choked out, my voice raw and unfamiliar, "was in your purse. The one you forgot." My eyes burned into hers. "You told me you had a big meeting. You told me you were working late." I gestured around the sordid hotel room, the rumpled sheets, the discarded clothes. "Is this your big meeting, Sarah? Is this your hard work for our family?" Her mouth opened and closed, no sound coming out. The other guy finally found his voice, a nervous stammer. "Look, mate, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "Shut up," I roared, my voice suddenly finding its power, startling even myself. The sound bounced off the walls of the small room, making them both flinch. I turned my gaze back to Sarah, whose face was now a sickly shade of green. "Get dressed," I commanded, my voice dangerously low. "We're going home. Now." I didn't wait for a response, just turned on my heel and walked out, leaving the door ajar, the key still clutched in my hand. The image of them, imprinted on my brain, would haunt me for years. The drive home was silent, thick with an unbearable tension. Sarah got into the passenger seat without a word, pulling her purse close to her like a shield. I could feel her staring at me, probably trying to gauge my next move, but I kept my eyes fixed on the road, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. Every fiber of my being was screaming. My mind was a whirlwind of flashes. Our wedding day, the birth of our kids, quiet evenings on the couch, all tainted now, retroactively poisoned by this betrayal. When we pulled into the driveway, she finally broke the silence, her voice surprisingly steady, almost casual. "Look, John, let's just calm down. We can talk about this like adults. Adults, I scoffed, turning off the engine and facing her, my eyes blazing. You want to talk about this like adults after I just found you half naked with some random in a hotel room you kept secret with a hidden key? The words were acidic, tasting like bile in my mouth. Don't you dare try to minimize this, Sarah. Don't you dare. She bristled, her jaw tightening. It's not what you think. It's complicated. He's a client. We were discussing a new campaign, and things just got out of hand. It was a mistake, a one-off. Her voice was dismissive, like she was explaining away a spilled cup of coffee. A one-off? My blood boiled. A one-off? You had a hidden key, Sarah. A hidden key to a hotel room. This wasn't some spontaneous oopsie after too many drinks at a conference. This was planned. This was deliberate. I leaned closer, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. How long, Sarah? How long have you been lying to me? How many late nights and work meetings were actually with him? Or with others? Her eyes narrowed. Don't be ridiculous, John. There's no one else. And it hasn't been long. Just a few times, okay? I was stressed. You were always busy. We hadn't been connecting. It just happened. The blame was already shifting, a subtle, insidious redirection. Oh, I was busy. I practically roared, hitting the steering wheel with the flat of my hand, making her jump. I was busy working my ass off for us, for our family, while you were out here getting your kicks. I felt tears prickling at the corners of my eyes, hot and angry. Don't you dare blame me for your choices, Sarah. This is on you. I couldn't bear to be in the enclosed space of the car with her anymore. I flung open the door and stormed into the house, leaving her to follow, or not. I didn't care. The fight, the real fight, was just beginning. The kids were still at school, thankfully, so the house was eerily quiet. It felt wrong, oppressive. I went straight to the living room, collapsing onto the sofa, my head in my hands. The silence was soon shattered by Sarah walking in, her expression a mix of defensiveness and something that might have been regret, but it was hard to tell. John, please, let's talk about this calmly, she started, her voice a little softer now, a calculated shift in tone. I lifted my head, my eyes bloodshot. Calmly? You want me to be calm, Sarah? My entire world just imploded in a tacky hotel room an hour ago. Tell me, how exactly do you propose I achieve calm right now? She sighed, a theatrical exhale that grated on my nerves. Look, I know you're upset, and I'm sorry. Truly, it was a stupid mistake. He's just a colleague, a bit of a laugh, nothing serious. It meant nothing. It meant nothing? I echoed, standing up, my voice rising again. It meant you lied to me, day after day. It meant you risked our marriage, our family, everything we built, for a bit of a laugh. What kind of person does that, Sarah? What kind of wife? I don't know, John. I don't know. She burst out, throwing her hands up. I felt neglected, okay? You're always so focused on work, on the kids, on everything but me. I felt invisible. He paid attention to me. The victim narrative was already in full swing. Neglected? I stared at her, dumbfounded. I work hard to provide for us. I play with the kids every night. I try to pick up your slack when you're working late. I ask you about your day. I try to plan dates. When was the last time you tried to connect with me? When was the last time you initiated anything, Sarah? Anything at all? My voice cracked with the injustice of it. She averted her gaze, fidgeting with the strap of her purse. That's not fair. I do things. I contribute. By cheating on me? I asked, the words a raw wound. Is that your contribution to our marriage? Humiliation and betrayal? I walked over to the window, staring out at our perfectly manicured lawn, the symbol of the life she'd just trashed. I gave you everything, Sarah. My trust, my love, my loyalty. And you just threw it away. A single tear finally escaped, trailing a hot path down my cheek. I don't even recognize you right now. Her silence was more infuriating than any argument. I turned back to her, my voice low and trembling with a mixture of anger and despair. You know, the worst part isn't even seeing you with him. It's the lies. The elaborate, calculated lies. You looked me in the eye, Sarah, every single time, and you lied to me. How could you? She finally looked up, her expression hardening. You're acting like I murdered someone, John. It was a mistake. People make mistakes. Are you perfect? Have you never done anything wrong? Oh, so this is a mistake now. I shot back, utterly aghast at her attempt to minimize and deflect. Cheating on your husband is a mistake? And no, I'm not perfect, Sarah. I've messed up plenty, but I have never, ever, consciously betrayed you, lied to you, or humiliated you like this. There's a difference between a mistake and a deliberate act of deceit. Well, maybe if you had paid more attention, it wouldn't have happened. Her voice rose, shrill and cutting. Maybe if you weren't so oblivious, I wouldn't have felt the need to look elsewhere. The blame was back, sharp and unyielding, aimed squarely at me. I felt a surge of pure, unadulterated rage. Oblivious? I asked you what was wrong. I asked you about the late nights. You snapped at me, Sarah? You made me feel like I was the bad guy for even questioning you. You built this whole elaborate web of lies, and now you're trying to pin it on me for not seeing through it sooner? I clenched my fists, shaking my head in disbelief. That's rich, Sarah. That's really rich. She crossed her arms, a stubborn set to her jaw. I'm not saying it's your fault entirely, but you can't deny we've had issues. You've been distant. Distant because I'm busting my ass trying to keep this family afloat, while you're off having an affair. I exploded, the controlled anger finally breaking. Distant because you were always on your phone, always tired, always had an excuse. How dare you turn this around on me? I paced the living room, feeling like a caged animal. Tell me one thing, Sarah. Just one honest thing. Was it just him? Or were there others? How many clients have you been meeting in hotel rooms? Her eyes darted away, a flicker of something I couldn't quite decipher. Fear? More annoyance? It was just him. I swear. It was a stupid, momentary lapse in judgment. Her tone was flat, unconvincing. Even as she said it, I knew it was another lie. The way she avoided my gaze, the slight hesitation. My gut screamed liar. The trust, already shattered, splintered into a million tiny pieces. The conversation, if you could even call it that, devolved into a screaming match. She kept deflecting, twisting, trying to shift the blame, while I kept demanding answers, honest ones, which she seemed incapable of giving. Every time I thought she might finally show some genuine remorse, she'd pivot, complain about my perceived shortcomings, or just shut down. It was like talking to a wall. A very angry, defensive wall. Eventually, the sound of the school bus pulling up outside snapped us back to reality. The kids, our innocent children, who were about to walk into a house that felt like a war zone. I knew we couldn't continue this in front of them. The thought of them seeing us like this, hearing these accusations, was unbearable. Stop, I said, my voice hoarse, devoid of any energy. Stop. We can't do this here, not now. The kids are home. She looked almost relieved, though she tried to hide it. Fine, but you need to calm down, John. You're scaring me. I'm scaring you, I repeated, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. You know what scares me, Sarah? The fact that I don't know who you are anymore. The fact that I slept next to a stranger for God knows how long. I pointed a shaky finger towards the guest room. You can sleep in there tonight. Or you can go back to your client. I don't care. But you're not sleeping in our bed. She huffed, grabbing her purse and storming off towards the guest room without another word. The door slammed shut with a resounding thud that vibrated through the silent house. It was a clear declaration of war, not an act of capitulation. I heard the front door open, the cheerful chatter of our kids filling the space. I took a deep, shuddering breath, trying to compose myself, to plaster on some semblance of normalcy. Hey guys, how was school? My voice sounded foreign, strained, but they didn't seem to notice. They ran in, eager to tell me about their day, completely oblivious to the gaping chasm that had just opened up in our lives. Protecting them, shielding them from this wreckage, became my immediate, overwhelming priority. Everything else could wait. For now, that night was a blur of pretending for the kids, then a long, agonizing darkness after they were asleep. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sarah and that man in the hotel room. The image was seared into my brain, a constant, burning torture. I replayed every conversation, every late night, every suspicious glance, trying to piece together the timeline of her betrayal. The pain was physical, a crushing weight on my chest that made it hard to breathe. The next morning, after the kids were off to school, the silence in the house was deafening. Sarah emerged from the guest room, looking disheveled, but still radiating that irritating air of self-pity and defiance. She tried to make coffee, moving around the kitchen like nothing catastrophic had happened, like this was just another Tuesday morning tiff. "John," she started, her voice falsely sweet. "Look, I know you're hurting. I really am sorry. Can we just move past this? For the kids? I can't imagine tearing our family apart." I stared at her, utterly disgusted by her performance. "Move past this? Sarah, you broke me. You shattered every ounce of trust one had in you. And you still can't even offer a genuine apology, just a sorry you're hurting and a for the kids plea." I stood up, leaning against the counter, my voice low and steady, though I was shaking inside. "You need to understand, this isn't a bump in the road. This is a complete demolition of our foundation. And your casual, it meant nothing attitude just proves you don't grasp the gravity of what you've done." Her eyes hardened. "So, what? You're just going to throw everything away? All our years, our kids, our future, over one stupid mistake?" "It wasn't one stupid mistake," I retorted. "It was a deliberate choice, repeated over time, cloaked in endless lies. And no, I'm not throwing everything away. You did that, Sarah. You threw it away." I took a deep breath. I need space. I need to think. I need to figure out what my life looks like now. And frankly, I need to figure out if I can even stand to be in the same room as you. "Are you saying you want a divorce?" Her voice was sharp, a hint of panic finally creeping in. "I don't know," I admitted, the words tasting like ash. "I honestly don't know. But what I do know is that I can't live like this. I can't live with the lies, with the constant suspicion, with this image burned into my brain. I need you to leave, Sarah, just for a while. Go stay with your sister or a friend. I need you out of this house." The words felt heavy, final, but also a strange relief. It was a line in the sand. She didn't take it well. Not at all. Her face turned a shade of crimson I hadn't seen since she was yelling at a rude waiter who messed up her order. "You want me to leave? My home? Where do you expect me to go, John? And what am I supposed to tell the kids?" The victim narrative was back with a vengeance, thick and cloying. "You can stay with your sister," I repeated, my voice flat. "Or your mother. Or that client friend of yours. I don't care. And as for the kids, you can tell them whatever you want. I'll tell them something similar, that we need some space, that mommy and daddy are having some adult problems. Whatever you do, do not make this about me kicking you out unfairly. You know exactly why you're leaving." "This is completely unreasonable," she shrieked, her composure completely gone. "You're overreacting." I said I was sorry. "What more do you want?" "I want honesty, Sarah," I said, my voice rising slightly. "I want genuine remorse, not this performative nonsense. I want to know if there's anything left of the woman I married, because right now, all I see is a stranger who actively chose to hurt me. And until I see some real attempt at accountability, not just blaming me or minimizing it, you need to be gone." She threw her hands up in exasperation. "Fine. If that's what you want, John, then fine. But don't come crying to me when you realize you've made a huge mistake." She stormed off towards the guest room again, slamming the door. Within minutes, I heard frantic rustling, followed by the sound of bags being dragged across the floor. It was chaotic, a whirlwind of slamming doors and muttered curses from her side. I just stood there, leaning against the counter, numb. Part of me expected her to come back, to genuinely plead, to offer some real explanation. But she didn't. She emerged with a small duffel bag and her laptop case, her expression tight with anger. She barely looked at me, just grabbed her car keys from the hook by the door and walked out, the front door closing with a definitive click. And then, silence. A profound, aching silence that settled over the house. She was gone. The quiet wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, suffocating. The air felt lighter, yet the weight on my chest hadn't lifted. If anything, it felt heavier, replaced by a dull, throbbing ache of emptiness. This wasn't relief. This was just the terrifying beginning of a new chapter one never wanted to write. The days that followed blurred into a monotonous cycle of going through the motions. I took time off work, fabricating some vague family emergency. Explaining Sarah's sudden absence to the kids was agonizing. We settled on, Mommy needed some space to think about her job, which was a half-truth that still felt like a lie in my mouth. They were confused, asked a million questions, and my heart broke a little more each time. Sarah called, but mostly about logistics. Her tone was still brittle, defensive. Never a true, "I'm so sorry for what I did to you, John." It was always about the inconvenience to her, or how I was making things difficult. She even suggested we tell the kids I kicked her out if they pushed too hard, which just solidified my resolve. Her self-preservation instinct was so strong, it dwarfed any genuine remorse. I spent hours just sitting in the house, staring at walls, at objects that suddenly felt foreign. Her side of the bed, perfectly made, now felt like a void. Her toothbrush still in the holder, her favorite mug in the cupboard. These mundane things became symbols of her absence and her betrayal. The emotional impact was immense. I swung wildly between volcanic rage and a deep, soul-crushing sadness. One minute I wanted to smash things. The next I was curled up on the couch, crying silently, the kind of tears that burn your throat and leave you gasping for air. Friends reached out, noticing my sudden withdrawal. I gave them vague answers, unable to articulate the gaping wound in my life. How do you tell people the woman you loved, the mother of your children, just vanished into an affair? The shame was immense, a heavy blanket that smothered any desire to talk about it. One evening, I found myself staring at our wedding photos. We looked so happy, so full of hope. I remembered how I felt that day, that overwhelming certainty that she was the one. Now, those memories felt tainted, bittersweet. Was it all a lie? Was she always capable of this? Or did something change? The questions swirled, unanswered, creating a vortex of doubt and self-blame. I started questioning everything: my judgment, my attractiveness, my role as a husband. Was she right? Was I truly so distant that she was driven to this? The self-doubt was insidious, a venom seeping into every corner of my mind. I knew I needed to stop this spiral, but it felt impossible. The emotional roller coaster was relentless. A week passed, then two. Sarah occasionally dropped by to pick up more of her things, always when I was out, or when the kids were around, avoiding any direct confrontation. Each visit felt like a little invasion, a reminder of her presence without her actual presence. I still hadn't slept properly. The dark circles under my eyes were permanent fixtures. My appetite was gone. One evening, after the kids were asleep, I found myself in the garage, staring at her bicycle. She loved cycling, and we used to go out together on weekends. I remembered buying her that bike, painstakingly assembling it for her birthday. It felt like a relic from another life. As I stood there, lost in thought, my eyes fell on a small, worn box on a shelf in the back corner. It was an old shoebox, one she used to keep sentimental junk in, as she called it. I hadn't looked in it in years. A sudden, morbid curiosity overcame me. Maybe I was looking for answers, maybe just for more pain. I pulled it down, the dust motes dancing in the dim garage light. Inside were old letters, dried flowers, concert tickets from our early dating days. And at the very bottom, tucked beneath a stack of old photos, was a smaller, velvet jewelry box. It wasn't one I recognized. My heart began to pound again. I opened it. Inside, on a bed of faded satin, lay a silver locket. It was delicate, ornate, and etched onto its surface were two initials, S, M, Sarah's initials, sure. But etched onto the back, in a completely different, bolder script, were the letters A, P, my name is John. A cold dread seeped into my bones. A, P. I didn't know anyone with those initials. My mind immediately flashed back to the slick-haired suit in the hotel room. I couldn't remember his name. I hadn't cared to know it. But my gut, that same gut that screamed at me at the Hyatt, was roaring now. This wasn't just a client. This wasn't just a mistake. This was something more. This was deeper. The locket felt heavy in my hand, a tangible piece of evidence that this affair had history. My initial assumption of a one-off, or a few times, shattered completely. This was a relationship, a secret life. I felt physically ill. The sense of betrayal intensified, if that was even possible, twisting the knife further into my already bleeding heart. The discovery of the locket was like being hit by a second wave. The initial shock of the affair was one thing. The realization that it was long-standing, significant enough for a locket with someone else's initials, was another entirely. I felt a cold fury settle in my chest, replacing the raw pain. This wasn't some desperate, lonely woman making a mistake. This was a woman leading a double life. I confronted her again that evening. She called about the kids' school schedule, and I seized the opportunity. "Sarah," I said, my voice dangerously calm, "I found something today. In your old sentimental box. There was a noticeable pause on her end. What are you talking about, John? Her voice was suddenly guarded. A locket, I stated, letting the word hang in the air. A silver locket, with S, M, on one side, and A, P, on the other. Care to enlighten me, Sarah? Who is AP? And how long has this one-off mistake been going on? The phone went silent for a moment. Then, she let out a shaky laugh, a completely unconvincing sound. Oh, that old thing. That's nothing. An old friend from college. Alex. We were just messing around back then. You know, silly young love. I forgot it was even there. You forgot it was there? I scoffed. Tucked away at the bottom of a box of your most cherished memories? And the initials, Sarah? Alex P. My voice was tight with disbelief. Are you really going to tell me that your client from the Hyatt, the one you were half naked with last week, just happens to be an old friend from college, with the same initials you secretly exchanged lockets with? Her voice hardened. It has nothing to do with him, John. You're making connections where there are none. You're paranoid. Paranoid. I roared, unable to contain my anger any longer. I found you with another man. You lied about it for months. You're trying to blame me for your choices. And now I find a locket with another man's initials, and you're still lying through your teeth. What part of this sounds like paranoia to you, Sarah? What part of this doesn't scream serial liar? He's not the same person. It's an old thing. And you're invading my privacy, digging through my things. She shrieked, once again turning it around on me. Invading your privacy? I laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. You forfeited your right to privacy when you started lying to me, Sarah? When you started screwing around behind my back. You want to know what this locket means to me? It means you've been lying to me for years. It means this wasn't a recent slip. This was a pattern. And you know what else it means? It means I'm done. Completely and utterly done. I hung up before she could respond, my hand shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. The decision had been made, forcefully, irrevocably. There was no coming back from this. The days following that last phone call were filled with a strange, numb clarity. The locket, her incessant lying, her refusal to take any real responsibility. It all coalesced into an undeniable truth. Our marriage was over. There was no coming back from this level of deception and disrespect. The decision, though heartbreaking, was firm. I contacted a lawyer, a family friend who specialized in divorces. It felt surreal, discussing the dismantling of my life with a stranger. He advised me on separating finances, temporary custody arrangements, and protecting myself. The practicalities of divorce were stark, cold, and utterly draining. I started going through papers, making lists, preparing for the inevitable. Each document I touched felt like another nail in the coffin of our life together. My emotional journey during this time was a turbulent one. The initial shock and anger slowly gave way to a deep, profound sadness. I grieved not just for the loss of Sarah, but for the loss of the future I thought we had, for the innocence of our family, for the person I thought she was. There were moments of intense loneliness, moments where I missed even the mundane aspects of our life together. But beneath it all, a quiet resolve began to grow. I deserved better. My kids deserved a father who was whole, not broken by continuous betrayal. I started reaching out to friends and family, slowly, cautiously, sharing snippets of the truth. Their support was a lifeline. My parents were heartbroken but incredibly supportive, offering to help with the kids. My closest friends rallied around me, making sure I wasn't alone, dragging me out for coffee or a beer, just letting me talk, or just sitting in silence. Sarah, predictably, went into full-on victim mode once the legal papers started moving. She called, alternately crying and raging, accusing me of ruining her life, of being unforgiving, of tearing the family apart. She even tried to pull the "I'm pregnant" card, which I immediately knew was a lie, a desperate attempt to manipulate. I just listened, calmly, detachedly, and reminded her that all communication now needed to go through our lawyers. It was hard, but necessary. Each false accusation, each attempt at gaslighting, only reaffirmed that I was making the right decision. The person I married was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize, someone I couldn't trust. The image of her with A.P. was now a permanent fixture, an undeniable symbol of the deceit that had pervaded our life. This was the only path forward. As the legal proceedings slowly ground forward, I found a strange kind of peace settling over me. It wasn't happiness, not yet, but a quiet resolve. The anger hadn't vanished entirely, but it had dulled, replaced by a determination to rebuild. The emotional impact was still there, a dull ache, but it no longer consumed me. I started focusing on the kids, on creating a stable, loving environment for them amidst the chaos. Their well-being became my sole mission. Sarah continued her antics. She tried to turn mutual friends against me, painted herself as the aggrieved party, the poor wife who was thrown out by her cold, unfeeling husband. Some friends bought it, some saw through it, and those who truly mattered stood by me. It was a painful culling, but also a clarifying one. I learned who my real allies were. One day, I received an email, not from Sarah, but from a mutual acquaintance. It was a link to an online news article. Local marketing executive arrested on embezzlement charges. And there, staring out from the mugshot, was A.P. Alex Peterson, Sarah's client and old college friend. The article detailed a complex scheme of siphoning funds from various companies, including Sarah's own firm. And his arrest had come after an internal audit triggered by an anonymous tip. I stared at the photo, the details of the story. It all clicked. The stress, the late nights, the sudden defensiveness. Sarah wasn't just having an affair. She was likely involved, or at least aware, of his illicit activities, perhaps even complicit. The hotel room wasn't just for sex, it was for secrets. The work events took on a whole new, sinister meaning. My blood ran cold again, but this time, it wasn't just betrayal I felt. It was a profound sense of disgust and a horrifying relief that I was getting out. I forwarded the article to my lawyer immediately. This added a whole new layer of complexity and, unfortunately, likely a whole new level of drama. But it also provided a horrifying vindication. Her lies were not just personal, they were potentially criminal. And it proved, unequivocally, that it meant nothing was another fabrication. She was deeply entangled with this man. The truth, even when ugly, brought a strange form of liberation. It stripped away any lingering doubts about whether I had made the right decision. This wasn't just about a stolen kiss or a moment of weakness. This was about a fundamental, dangerous deceit that had permeated every aspect of her life, and by extension, mine. The emotional impact shifted again, from sadness to a fierce determination to protect myself and my children from any further contamination. The acceptance was complete.